But now the latest on health. This is from Cedars-Sinai Center and in researching cancer. Quote, men who get the most physical activity report erections, orgasms, above and beyond the normal. So, that's good news. They took a look at 300 men, and they measured their physical activity, and then got reports back on the frequency and duration of erections and overall sexual function. Men who exercise the most, quote, as measured by what is known as metabolic equivalence, had higher sexual function scores, regardless of race, and this was published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. Specifically, better sex was reported for those who engaged in the equivalent of 2 hours of strenuous exercise, 3.5 hours of moderate exercise, or 6 hours of light exercise a week. Men who exercised less had lower sexual function scores. One more reason that as we age, as men tend to stop exercising, develop the pot belly. That drives estrogen. A meat-based diet, high-protein diet, that drives estrogen, and stress drives estrogen. All those work against the balance of testosterone that we need, especially free testosterone, in order to function sexually. So, let's exercise. There's a lot of people on gluten-free diets. In fact, for more than 20 years in all of our health support groups, we have advocated a gluten-free diet. We've had people talk about how they have more energy, they don't have bloating, constipation, they don't have diarrhea. They feel a lot more invigorated. Plus, a lot of inflammation in the body is no longer there. This is the latest study. It shows, quote, gluten-free has taken the food world by storm, but the specific reasons that turn consumers into gluten-free converts have been a bit of a mystery. And they did this survey to shed some light on what drives people. And while individuals with celiac disease may be most vulnerable to gluten in the diet, it's not the main driver for consumers starting to eat gluten-free. Interest in improving health and feeling better overall, that's the main driver. So, whatever your reason for wanting to be gluten-free, a lot of people who don't have gluten intolerance, who are not allergic to wheat, are going that way because they're feeling better. There's been a debate for a long time in the health movement about the benefits or the contraindications for raw milk. On the one hand, the certified and monitored raw dairies, including the one that was one of the longest running ones in California history, the Altadena dairy, had very little problems. Rare that they would ever have a contaminated batch of milk. We know that processed milk, homogenized and pasteurized, and also coming from cattle that have been given a growth-stimulating hormone, are highly problematic. You do not have those health concerns about raw milk. The problem with raw milk is, how do you know that the person producing the raw milk didn't have bacteria in the milk? This is from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. Quote, as analysts conducted research at the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future, they found that the risks of drinking raw, unpasteurized cow's milk are significant. Consumers are nearly 100 times more likely to get foodborne illness from drinking raw milk than they are from drinking pasteurized milk. In fact, the researchers determined that raw milk was associated with over half of all milk-related foodborne illnesses, even though only 3.5% of all the U.S. population consumes raw milk. Based on their findings, the researchers discouraged the consumption of raw milk, which some claim is healthier and tastes better than pasteurized milk. They note that the risks are better understood than the benefits, and that the future research is needed to determine whether the health benefits claims are legitimate. Okay, I believe that that's legitimate. I don't see that there's bias in their study. However, you have to understand that in some states, if a person has dairy cattle on their own property, they can sell raw milk, and they can drink it themselves. So what we don't know is how many cases of raw milk poisoning happen by people who don't have a full knowledge of how to do it hygienically. I mean, you could have a cow, a dairy cow, and you could milk it, and you could drink the milk, and you could end up, our family member, going to the hospital with food poisoning, and then that's recorded as source raw milk. Now compare that with a certified organic raw milk dairy. Then ask this question: how many cases of food poisoning came from there? Now, as far as I've been able to determine, and I have to do far more research on this, very, very, very few cases of foodborne illness come from certified dairies because they're inspected regularly. They have to maintain high levels of hygiene. They have to soak down all their equipment. They have to sterilize their equipment. They have to make sure that the udders on the cows are kept clean and disinfected. Well, that then isn't being fair to say that raw milk unpasteurized is dangerous 100 times more. Be specific. It would be like saying vegans are unhealthy. Okay. They're 100 times less healthy than meat eaters. All right. Now let's just say hypothetically that someone made that statement. I would immediately say, which vegans are you referring to? Are you referring to those vegans who have followed a healthy regimen based upon educating themselves? The ones that are having 12 to 14 servings of fruits and vegetables organically grown and no GMO? Those that are having 75% of their diet raw and the rest living food diet? No, we weren't talking about those. Those are healthier than the meat eater by 100 times. You're going to live a longer life and not have heart disease, stroke, cancer. I see, but you took the stressed out teenager who's given up eating meat because they don't want to see a cow suffer. Good. But who's now living off donuts and pizza crust. Bad. You've lumped them both together. So what I see frequently in science and in the articles, and I read dozens upon dozens per day, are unintentional biases, where they simply didn't look at the bigger picture and try to find a context to make their argument. So that is where I'll do an article. I'll come back to that on an upcoming program after I've contacted the state health departments in all states where there are organic dairies, and I'll give you the actual statistics. For pregnant women, according to the University of Alberta and Calgary, you're not getting enough of the omega-3 fatty acids, and that could be critical for infant development. Quote, Alberta Pregnancy Outcome and Nutrition is a birth cohort involving over 2,000 women and their infants from Calgary and Edmonton that was funded by the state, and they found that you're not getting enough. And if you don't get enough of the omega-3 long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids, it will impact the development of your fetus. This was published in Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism. Well, that's true not just in Canada, it's true in Africa. Could you imagine that if instead of giving through the Gates Foundation the vaccines which do not protect the children, and instead put that same amount of money into clean water from deep wells, proper sanitation with latrines, local clinics that had medications for malaria and tuberculosis, food pantries, and hydroponic gardens that could have people, even in a desertified area, grow food year-round. You would virtually eliminate probably 80% of the diseases that now impact children. And omega-3 fatty acids, giving them vitamin A, vitamin B complex, vitamin E, vitamin C, and the omega-3s. You would no longer see the diseases that we see if you did the same thing in India. Now, I know this for a fact because my brother was the one responsible for seeing that all pregnant women in the Dominican Republic receive free prenatal vitamins. And that dropped the incidence of problems during pregnancy and the development of that fetus way down. So it's not just that we're lacking omega-3, we're lacking a full spectrum of nutrition for pregnant women, and we should really make that a major issue. Also, for those of you who want to lower your risk of having a stroke or colorectal cancer, let's focus on colorectal cancer because this was just published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, and it was research from Harvard School of Public Health. Once again, those omega-3 fatty acids, quote, intake associated with lower risk of colorectal cancer. How simple is that? Not only are you helping your heart, your brain, you're helping slow down aging, you're turning off inflammation in your heart, but you're also helping prevent colorectal cancer. That's good. Air pollution is linked to an increased risk of stroke. The more polluted the air, the more likely you are to die. So most people would never think this is important. But then you have to look at the statistic. Stroke is a leading cause of death. Kills 5 million people worldwide. Pollution in at least 28 countries also kills millions of people. So we're talking about small particulate matter. So small you won't even probably see it. We're not talking about the air out of Beijing where you can't even see in front of you. We're talking about where you think that it's not bad. So make sure that you're aware of checking before you buy in an environment, is the air clean? High cholesterol and triglycerides can keep vitamin E from reaching body tissues. So, this is according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So if you have elevated cholesterol or elevated triglycerides, make sure that you get vitamin E, that you take it 3 times a day in natural form. I suggest maybe 200 units in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. You're more likely then get it into the tissues because otherwise it could be blocked. And finally, from the University of Michigan, you know, all those antipsychotic drugs that people are taking. Now, historically, people took them when they had extreme anxiety and could not be controlled. Now 25% of all women between 25 and 45 in the United States are taking antipsychotic medication. But we also found that thousands of people were dying in nursing homes because they were starving to death or they were dehydrated to death. How's that possible? Simple. Give them tranquilizers. They won't ask you for anything. They'll just stay there like a zombie all day long, strapped into a chair. That's how bad nursing homes are in the United States. This is from the University of Michigan. Quote, drugs aimed at quelling the behavioral problems of dementia patients may also hasten their deaths more than previously realized. The research adds more troubling evidence to the case against antipsychotic drugs as a treatment for delusions, hallucinations, agitation, aggression, and this also is with people with Alzheimer's and dementia. In the new issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry, they looked at 91,000 American veterans over the age of 65 with dementia. And those that were on the antipsychotic medication, they die much faster. They have much greater risk of death. So don't take antipsychotic medication. It's not good for you. It's not good for anyone except the pharmaceutical industry. I'm Gary Null. That's the latest on health and healing.